it's a place where we let God find us.
That's a beautiful way of saying it, George. Yeah.
Let God find you there. And when he finds you, don't be afraid. He's gonna love on you.
Yeah.
That's just his fatherly heart.
Are you living the life you've always wanted? How do you know? Are you closer to Jesus than you were before? Do you see yourself growing in grace and the knowledge of Christ? In this series on spiritual formation, longtime friends Jim and George address these questions and more. Join us as we talk about the essential things needed to live the life God intended for us to live. The persons we become is the most important thing that God gets out of our lives, and what others get as well. Dig in with us and let's learn to become Christ-like from Scripture and from the lives of many of the church's teachers. Here we go.
Hello, George.
Hello again. This is becoming a habit, Jim.
It is a habit. It's a good habit.
No.
It's a training habit.
I wonder how in the long term doing this habit is going to change us. I think it's beginning to, in ways. I'm not quite sure I know exactly, but we are changing, I think, in the way we teach this, in the way we learn this, in the way we talk about it.
It is.
Yeah.
I think both of us, not unlike probably most of our listeners, have a lot on our plate. But I think us having to talk about spiritual formation together has had its, at least this is one way I think it has potential for change. It just has the effect of slowing me down because I'm aware that spiritual formation by its nature requires a slowing down, not being so hurried.
Yeah.
There's not much we can do about our busyness. We have roles and responsibilities, but there's a lot we can do about hurry.
Yeah.
And I think that's one way I think it's having an effect.
Yeah. Another way is just, this is what happens in friendship. We talk about the most important things in life.
Yeah.
And this is very important in both of our lives. Yeah. So the fact that we can do it in public, people hearing and listening to our conversations and cogitations and idiosyncrasies and what have you, it's, we're being vulnerable with this.
We are.
We're learning vulnerability, I think. Yeah. And it's not a bad thing.
That's one of the travels of life is to learn vulnerability, I think.
Well, we've gotten to the point now, Jim, where we need to start talking about what each of these disciplines are.
That's right.
Yeah.
We are.
And today we've got solitude on our plate.
That's right. Solitude on our plate.
That's right.
I'd like an order of solitude, please.
Yeah, yeah. That's a wonderful way to start the day.
Yeah.
An order of solitude, please,
Yeah.
and ask God to provide it.
Yeah, that's good.
Take the time to do it. We're joking. I want to begin with Luke chapter 6, verses 15 and 16, because as our habit is to start with Jesus, this is crucial.
We begin with Jesus.
We want to begin with Jesus. Yeah.
So Luke chapter 5, I think you said 6 a minute ago, but 5.
Yeah, 5, yeah.
15 and 16.
15 and 16. Yeah. This is right after Jesus heals a leper.
Okay.
He tells him, go and show yourself to the priest and all of that. And but the news about him in verse 15, it says, spread even more. So popularity is beginning to be an issue.
Yeah.
People are talking about it. Jesus is anticipating the rush that's going to come his way. What does he do?
He's becoming a public figure.
Yeah. But the news about him spread even more, and now large crowds were gathering together to hear him. Popularity.
Yeah. I wonder how he felt about that. if he was excited or if he was dreadful or both, sometimes one or the other.
Yeah.
Just wonder. Yeah.
Well, in verse 16, maybe we get a glimpse of how he thought about it.
Okay.
Jesus himself frequently withdrew to the wilderness and prayed.
Man, I like him.
That's the way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Other translations have Jesus himself, instead of frequently withdrew, it says as was his habit.
As was his habit.
Yeah, because the word to withdraw, to separate yourself, to unhook yourself from the crowds, from the popularity, is in Greek in the imperfect tense.
Okay. Kind of continuance.
What that means, it's something that was habitually being done.
Interesting.
And they would use the imperfect to give us that idea that habitually Jesus did this.
So there's a maybe I'm getting ahead of us, George, but there's a rhythm, perhaps. This is maybe an indicator of a rhythm.
Yeah, and we're going to see it, especially in the book of Mark.
Okay.
We're going to read enough verses in Mark just to have the impression how often Jesus did this. We'll get into that in just a couple of minutes. It's how Jesus began his ministry.
Yeah. Okay.
He gets baptized into the wilderness, how he made decisions, how he dealt with the inner pain and grief that he was experiencing. All of it played into solitude, how he unhurried his life, as we read in this passage. He took time off. He cared for his inner life. He taught his disciples to do the same. He looked ahead in ministry, and as he looked ahead, it caused him to say, oh boy, a big period of time of ministry is coming. I better take some time off.
Well, yeah.
And be alone. So no wonder the writers of our church fathers, our ancestors, called it Beata Solitudo. That's a Latin name, which translates how beautiful, how beatific, how blessed is solitude. So they kind of prioritized solitude above other disciplines. O sola beatudo, the only blessing, right? So retreat, reflection on belief, on yourself, on God, in nature, in a formative way is what solitude
that's good.
is about.
George, you've talked to me, one thing I've learned from you through the years, you made a distinction between being a conduit and a reservoir. Remember that?
Yeah.
Does that ring a bell? And I think that really landed with me. I don't know if that makes sense to very many people. Is this a time for me to ask you to unpack that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah.
So what's the difference between seeing ourselves as a conduit of God's presence and work in our life and a reservoir?
Yeah. A reservoir is what receives water, what receives the extra, the abundance of the water, and it holds it there in a reservoir.
It's not just flowing in and out.
It's not just flowing in and out. The danger with these truths that we are trying to put forward is that if people just think that just by knowing them, that change is going to happen.
Right.
That's not gonna. It's not gonna do
it. It doesn't.
Let it marinate in these principles, in these practices, and then you can become a conduit. Then it begins to flow out of us naturally.
Yeah. And solitude is such an important reservoiring. That's not a word, but I just made it one.
Yeah. It's a
practice.
container.
Yeah.
Well, talked about it as it's one of those container disciplines into which you can fit other disciplines,
Yes.
other means
Yeah.
of grace.
Yeah.
Because when you're alone, you can do several things.
Mm-hmm.
You can be quiet and not do anything,
Mm-hmm.
but you can also be studying.
Mm-hmm.
Well, studying is not exactly solitude, and solitude is not exactly studying, but you can do studying
In solitude.
right?
Yeah, that's
So they're called a container
Yeah.
discipline,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good.
So
So be a rabbit.
Jesus made solitude a priority
Yeah,
in his
he
life.
does.
And I think sometimes we talk about something that Jesus did and we kind of label it as a discipline. It may or may not have been.
Mm.
Like we don't hear of him fasting other than these 2 times.
Mm. Uh-huh.
But with solitude, it's recurring, like over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
So,
Want to read some
Yeah.
of the examples of
yeah.
solitude?
I wanted to quote Pascal first
Okay.
on this and
Yeah.
then read some of the quotes. Pascal said, all humanity's problems, that's pretty broad statement, right?
Right.
Every problem you have, Jim,
Mouthful.
every problem I have, stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone.
Well,
I mean, that's how solitude is crucial and important. Instead of going out there and fighting everybody, why don't you just take 10 minutes and be alone
yeah.
with your own thoughts,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
reflect on,
Yeah.
well, how can I say this better?
Yeah.
Instead of fighting, how can I approach it
Yeah, that's good.
peacefully with reconciliation,
Yeah.
with redemption in mind? Right?
Yeah.
This is what solitude allows us
Yeah.
to do, right?
Yeah, that's good. That's really good.
Solitude is about the ruthless elimination of hurry.
Yeah.
Right? Lots of people are using this phrase now.
Right.
John Mark Comer has written a book by that title.
That's right. Yeah.
John Orberg received that instruction from Dallas Willard
Right.
when he came to him and said, I want to live life better.
Yeah.
Help me.
Yeah.
Give me the truth that I need.
Yeah.
And Dallas says to him, eliminate hurry.
Yeah.
Yeah. What else?
Eliminate
Can I write it down? And what else? What else should I do?
Yeah.
Well, he says, there's nothing else. Just learn to eliminate hurry.
Yeah.
And I think this is kind of the heart and soul of solitude.
Yeah, that's good.
It allows you to eliminate
Yeah.
hurry from your life.
Kind of another way of coming at solitude in terms of just another way of thinking about it for me. I don't remember who, maybe you know, someone once said, we're not changed by our experiences. We're changed by our reflections
on our
experiences.
Yeah.
And I think that's the gift of solitude. It allows us to slow down,
Yeah.
to be with ourselves
Yeah.
and God and reflect.
Yeah.
And
We're going to define it at the end. We're just talking around the definition now
Okay.
in ways that are helpful.
Okay, go
Yeah.
for it.
So, in Mark chapter 1, verse 12, we're going to be in Mark, and you know why Mark is important for this? Because Mark has a hurried way about him.
Yeah.
For example, the word immediately,
Yeah. It's all
39 times he says, immediately Jesus did this, immediately. So on the way to the cross, he's in a hurry to get Jesus down to Jerusalem for the crucifixion. But along the way, Jesus is taking his time.
Mark's pretty sped up.
He's pretty steady. Yeah. But then, so it's a beautiful contrast to see Mark is in a hurry to get Jesus to the cross, but Jesus is not in a hurry. He's taking his time. He's spending time alone in prayer, away from other people.
So interesting.
In Mark 1:12, it says, the Spirit immediately drove him into the wilderness. The idea in the wilderness is where you're alone with your own thoughts,
Yeah.
with God, and you're doing business there. So, and that was a formative time
Absolutely.
for Jesus
Yeah.
in the wilderness.
Yeah.
Then you get Mark 1:35, just a few verses later, after Jesus has had a long day of ministry.
Mm-hmm.
He had crossed over the Jordan, come back,
Mm-hmm.
and his mother, Peter's mother-in-law is sick. He heals her, and who knows how many people came that
Yeah.
day to be healed by him. But then Jesus got up early in the morning, right after that day of ministry, when it was still very dark, departed and went to a deserted place, and there he spent time in prayer. It's a deserted place, meaning there was nobody there.
Well,
That's solitude.
yeah.
That's he's taking the time. In 1:45, but as the man went out, he began to announce it publicly and spread the story widely, so that Jesus was no longer able to enter any town openly, but stayed outside in remote places. You have to practice solitude.
Yeah. He's trying to get away.
Yeah. And still they were coming to him from everywhere. Let me read a couple more. In Mark 1:16, back to Mark, this is just in chapter 1.
Well, yeah.
Mark 1:16 says, as he went along the Sea of Galilee, you get the idea that he's by himself. Then he saw Simon and Andrew, Simon's brother, casting their nets, and he said to them, follow me. You wonder what was he doing on the beach alone?
Right. Yeah.
He's alone on the beach walking, right?
Yeah. Right.
In chapter 2, verse 13, Jesus is doing the same thing. Jesus went again by the sea, and then the whole crowd got to him, came to him, and he taught them. So these little statements, they're not just thrown there for a geographical location.
Yeah.
But I think they are locating Jesus in a tradition, in a life practice that is telling us something.
Yeah.
He's there alone for a reason. He's experiencing solitude.
It is like a tension, is not the word I'm looking for, but there's balance there, because, Mark is definitely moving Jesus along to Jerusalem, but he's also wanting us to see Jesus alone.
Yeah. So I've got 15 other references like that, at least, not to mention what's in Matthew, what's in Luke, what's in John.
Right.
This is just from Mark. So rather than reading all of this
Right.
we're going to post these in the notes,
Okay.
and then people can access those.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great.
But maybe it's time here, before we give a definition, maybe it's time for us to plug something that we at Renovate are serious and engaged about doing, Jim. And we call it Spending the Day with Jesus.
Yeah.
And the intention of that is...
Yeah. Literally spending a day with Jesus.
That's right.
We offer these once a quarter.
Yeah.
We do them together. There's a group of people that come together at a retreat center, and we try to nurture about a 7-hour experience.
And always part of that experience is
Solitude.
solitude.
Yeah. It's part of it.
We take about an hour and we ask people to
Yeah.
just go by themselves
Yeah.
and do business with God and listen to what God is saying to them. Maybe pray, maybe not. Maybe just sit there and be with God in nature.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. When's the next one, by the way?
August 2nd. August 2nd. So
There you
if you're
go.
in the Topeka area, or Topeka is accessible, it's just west and a little bit north of Topeka.
How do people access?
Yeah, if they go to our website, soulrenovate.us, I think the tab is called Events, or it may be called Spending the Day.
Soulrenovate.us. One word, soulrenovate.us.
Yeah, they can go on there.
And then, and one of the first pictures that comes up is events.
Right.
They can click on it and register right there.
That's right. And this particular event, we are giving focus to hearing from God.
Yeah.
So living a listening life.
Yeah.
So solitude works really well
Yeah.
with
Good.
this. So
do people have to take a second mortgage to be able to attend?
it's pretty cheap, $35,
And
you get lunch.
you throw in lunch in the price.
throw in
Yeah.
lunch.
And all there's a couple of times of teaching and
Yeah, we have
and
some input.
lots of group interactivity and
That's
all
right.
that. Yeah.
But there'll definitely be solitude as part of it.
I can't commend it. Enough. It's a wonderful experience.
It is.
We started these a few years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and they've continued, and lots of people
Yeah.
are taking advantage. We only have room for about 35 or so people, so we're limited by
Get-
the
get
space
on
we
there.
have chosen,
Yeah.
and we wanted to keep it intimate, right? So jump on the
So by the time
bandwagon.
this episode drops, it may be past. That I just realized that, George, but that's
Yeah.
okay. Our next one after this, if today's date that you're listening to this
Yeah.
is after August 2nd, their next one will be November.
Yeah,
So we have one about every 3 months
Yeah.
for a year.
and it'll be November
I don't remember
4th.
the date. Is that what it
Saturday,
is?
November 4th.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, it's a Saturday.
Yeah.
It's November 4th.
Okay.
Yeah. So what is it? Let's talk about the definition of
Okay.
solitude.
Yeah.
Let me state it this way, and then maybe we can say one or two things about each part of the definition.
Okay.
When we make an open and empty space in our lives, an open and empty space in our lives, it's open in the sense that there's nothing there.
Mm-hmm.
And empty in the sense that it's not full of activities or temptations to activities. And we're not going there to read.
Uh-huh.
We're not going there to study.
Yeah.
We're not going there to listen to our favorite music. It's a place that is open to God, to talk to us and for us to talk to
Yes.
God and to experience rest,
Yeah.
right?
I remember you told me once, sometimes solitude is doing something with God.
Yeah.
It can be a solitude expression, but it's also, and maybe more importantly, it's simply being with God
Yeah,
without
yeah,
trying to do
yeah.
something with or for
Correct.
Him.
Yeah, the other ways I describe, like if you're studying and you're alone, you're doing something with God.
Yeah, and nothing wrong with that.
No,
that's
we
right.
need it.
Yeah,
But the other type of solitude is where you're not doing anything.
Yeah.
You're actually withholding activity.
yeah. Which can be, especially, well, I don't know about especially, but for extroverts or just people who aren't used to
Yeah.
that kind of unhurried time, it can be really almost frightening
It's challenging.
to just find contentment just to be with God
Yeah.
and let Him be with you without an agenda.
Yeah.
I'm getting ahead of ourselves.
No, this is right.
But
No,
that's its value.
Yeah.
One of the things it does is it reminds me I don't have to be a producer in order for God to be pleased with my life or others. I can learn to just be with God in
Yeah.
His presence.
Yeah. I mean, which says a lot. Like, if God is a scary figure to you,
Mm-hmm.
if your narrative of who God is like one who's always commanding you,
Yeah.
one who's not pleased with you,
Yeah.
where the only time you come is because you feel sheepish about something bad you've done.
Yeah.
If that's the only relationship we have with God, solitude is a scary place.
It is. It can be. It has been for me at times. And
Yeah.
learning to enter that way and realizing in those times its effect has been God is for me.
Yeah.
He's happy for me to be with Him without an agenda
Mm-hmm.
or needing to produce something or come up with a plan for the next thing,
Yeah.
just to be with Him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The second part of the second part of this definition is when we abstain from interacting with other people,
that's
like
part
and
of solitude.
intentionally not being with other people,
Yeah. Yeah.
so that you're not interacting.
Yeah.
It's not about that.
Yeah.
It's about taking that part away.
Yeah.
No distraction
Yeah. No social.
of other people.
Yeah.
Now, is being with other people a bad thing? Absolutely not.
Right. We need it. Yeah.
But for this time, that's not what you want to do.
It's a thoughtfully, carefully, prayerfully selected period of time. We
Now,
made a decision.
Sometimes, Jim, I've been in crowds where I felt
Alone.
tuned in,
Okay.
attuned to God, alone, attuned to God,
Yep.
because I was able to blog. And I'm not actually interacting with people. I'm
Yeah.
with people, but I'm with God.
Yeah, that's kind of beautiful
Yeah.
when we get those opportunities.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to always be there's no one around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's no competing loyalties on this time
Yeah.
that you're spending.
Yeah.
You're not doing it in a hurry. You're not just trying to get it out of the way so that you can get to
Yeah.
something else.
No one's asking anything from me,
No.
and neither is God.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it's a place where we let God find us.
That's a beautiful way of saying it, George.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let God find you there.
Yeah.
And when he finds you, don't be afraid. He's going to love on you.
Yeah.
That's just his fatherly heart. He's going to
God with Adam. Where are you?
Yeah.
I feel that sometimes when I'm in solitude. I hear God's voice saying, "Where are you?"
Yeah.
And sometimes my answer is, "I don't have the foggiest idea, Lord."
Could you tell me? Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk. Let's
help
be
me.
with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So creating an open space, there's no fear, no agenda, no reading, no achieving anything, just being with.
Yeah.
You know how sometimes you just sit with Cindy and watch
Yeah.
something on television?
Not baseball games, unfortunately. We don't
Yeah,
do that,
well.
but that's okay.
Uh,
We watch Hallmark movies.
yeah,
sometimes.
that's good. But you don't have to be talking about
No,
it.
that's
all the
right.
time.
Yeah.
You're just sitting.
Yeah.
Two people who love one another deeply and are sitting in each other's company, and you're not doing
Yeah.
anything
Yeah.
together.
That's right. I have friends, you do too, and I think you and I can do this. Sometimes I have some friends that I can be with them. I usually experience it as on a road trip. I can just be with them and we can go an hour or two, not even speak.
Yeah,
And it's
we've
like-
done that.
Yeah, it's like it's cool.
Yeah, you've dragged me to Nashville one or two times.
Yeah, that's right. Just listen to the tires on the road and
I think the important thing is, like, for people who are not comfortable with this, God doesn't bite.
yeah,
You know,
that's right.
You can approach him
Yeah,
all alone.
extremely approachable.
Interact with God and no one else. That's what that time is for. That's what that experience is for.
Yeah.
You're not trying to make a list of anything. You're not even trying to tell God all your faults. He already knows.
Right.
You know? It's not even a time of confession.
Yeah.
It's just a time of resting in the presence of God.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Focus on your devotion to God without letting other responsibilities intervene. Just maybe being with God in a way that you appreciate His presence with you. Maybe a memory comes to mind where He's been good to you,
Yeah.
where He's given you a grace that you didn't
Yeah.
deserve,
Yeah.
where He's shown you mercy,
Yeah.
where He just been good
Yeah.
in your life.
Yeah. It's good.
It's just being with God in that way.
You know, one of my tools for that is called a hammock.
Yeah.
Hammocks are really helpful for me to do solitude. I don't use them every time I do solitude, but because you can read in a hammock, you can journal, but it's a little bit clunky.
It's clunky.
You know, so but just to lay there and to be with God, and if I drift off into a nap, which I don't normally do, be okay with that.
Yeah.
You know, just with God even in my sleep.
Yeah, sometimes just going walking without a Walkman
Yeah,
Anybody remember what a Walkman is? I don't think so. Well, without anything in your ears, you know, and listening to anything.
Yeah.
It's just so.
Yes.
You're just walking with Jesus.
And we may talk more about silence in the future, but we want to be clear about that. Like, it's okay to listen to music, but I fear that there's some people who never have just pure quiet in their lives. I see it in my community sometimes. It's like, you don't need to be listening to music all the time.
That's right.
You know?
Yeah.
It's noise. And there's a time when you just need to...
Silence is abstaining from noise.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is a little bit different than solitude.
It is.
Yeah.
We'll say more about that.
And then let God find you in that space.
Yes, I love that phrase, George. Let God find you.
Drop the mask. Drop the pretense.
Yeah.
You don't need them with God. And He doesn't talk through the mask. He talks through the naked person that's there.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, so true.
What does it look like? Maybe this is where people can be encouraged to enter into solitude. If you can take 10 minutes a day just to be in the company of one person, in the audience of one, in Jesus' company. Or maybe you're going between activities. You're going from one activity to another, maybe on the job or whatever you're doing.
Sometimes even in the car.
Yeah. Just take 1 or 2 minutes. Go to the bathroom if you have to.
Yeah.
And just be alone.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wash your hands. Wash your face.
Yeah.
Take a drink of water. And just be in your thoughts with God.
That's right.
Yeah. And that's solitude.
There's very creative ways. It doesn't always have to be a big block of time.
Yeah.
It can be.
And then come to our spending the day with Jesus.
Yeah, please.
And we will practice some solitude there.
We have such a wonderful team that help put these experiences together, and they're so creative.
Yeah.
And so we would love for you to join us on that. Yeah.
Yeah, solitude. A very important discipline.
Yeah. Can you think of, maybe we've already answered this, George, but in closing, can you think of like a habitual favorite way you do solitude? Is it, what's it look like for you?
Early in the morning, before I do breakfast, I take the first hour of the day and just sit at my desk and not prepare, not read or anything. Just sit in silence for a few minutes.
Yeah.
Sometimes I do it just as I open my eyes. I just turn my eyes toward heaven, saying, I'm here, God. I know you're here. Let's do this day together.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not measured by how much time you're alone. Like you don't have to go to a monastery and be a monk.
Yeah.
Or you don't have to go to the desert. Right?
Or the woods.
Yeah.
I mean, those
You
are
can,
nice.
and that's helpful, but that's not necessarily for everybody.
Yeah.
But for us, we do need to take time.
Yeah.
Just be alone with God.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
It's really good.
No agenda.
We encourage it. I can't imagine this life of becoming like Jesus, little by little, without solitude. It's just, I'm not changed by my experiences. I'm changed more by my reflection.
Correct.
Bringing those experiences to the Lord.
Yeah.
Being
There's something very formative about it. Jesus wouldn't have practiced it.
There's a deepening.
I think that's one way that I believe that Jesus increased in wisdom and understanding. It wasn't just reading. It wasn't just the formal things that he did in his education.
Right.
I mean, how did he learn about the lilies and the birds and the grapes and the wilderness and all of that?
Yeah.
I think Jesus learned them by experience.
Yeah, that's right.
I think he was practicing solitude long before he started teaching it.
Yeah. So sometimes when you're in your car and you're thinking, I'm going to listen to that Soul Renovate podcast. I've got time. Well, we like that. But we'd also say, some of those times, just say, you know what, I'm going to be quiet.
Yeah.
And just listen to the wheels and be with God.
Turn it off for 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah.
5 minutes.
Yeah.
And then come back.
Yeah, that's right. It has such an important place.
Well, blessings on you as you practice solitude. Would love to hear from you. I mean, let us know how these things are going.
Absolutely.
Now that we're being a little bit more practical and intentional in giving people ways to do that.
Yeah.
We'd love to hear from them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's so much more we could say about solitude.
Yeah.
But we'll end there and just encourage you forward in it. And we would love to hear it. So, all right, bye, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Soul Renovate podcast. Any of the scriptures or resources that we mentioned in this episode will be linked in our show notes. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to leave us a review and subscribe on your favorite podcasting app, because it really helps us to share these conversations with more Christian leaders like you. And if you have any questions you'd like Jim and George to answer, you can email us at info@soulrenovate.us. Soul Renovate is a ministry of Christ First Counseling Center, and it exists to propel Christian leaders to abide in Christ and grow in His likeness. Soul Renovate is made possible by the generous support of people like you. If you'd like to support us, you can do that on our website, soulrenovate.us. And if you'd like to learn more about Soul Renovate, you can also do that on our website, soulrenovate.us. This podcast is produced by me, Dalton Huey, with the help of Gil Hara. Our cover art was designed by Hannah Huey, and our music is by The Fox's Forest. Thanks again for listening. Till next time.